Hello, my fellow minor league nerds, and welcome to part 2 of our franchise history episode on the history of professional baseball in Ottawa, Ontario. Be sure to check out part 1 if you haven't done so yet. After the demise of the Canadian League in 1915 due to the Great War, Ottawa's next professional team would come in 1922, playing in the 4-team Eastern Canada, or Eastern Canadian League, which was given the Class B designation. Once again, they were named the Senators. The league wasn't formed until March 20th of that year, with league play scheduled to begin on May 11th. So that didn't leave much time for the Senators to recruit players, which in turn led to a deficit in hitting, causing them to begin the season 2-11. Things started to change towards the end of May when several players were released and new ones were brought in by manager Dick Dawson. One of the new additions was an 18-year-old St. Louis Cardinals pitching prospect named Fred Frankhouse. Frankhouse was initially assigned to the Syracuse Stars of the International League, but was reassigned to Ottawa after not appearing in any games for Syracuse. He took the loss in his first start on May 21st when the Senators fell 7-3 to Valleyfield. He was tapped to start the morning game of a doubleheader against the Trois-Rivières on Victoria Day, in what would be his second professional start. He went on to pitch all 14 innings of the game, recording a complete game, leading the Senators to victory in front of 1,000 to 1,500 fans at Lansdowne Park. In the game, Frankhouse gave up 11 hits on 2 walks, striking out 10 and stranding 10. Ottawa went on to win the second game 5-1. They were much-needed victories that became a turning point for the team as they won 23 of their next 34 games, moving into first place. They were unable to keep the momentum going come September. They held a game-and-a-half lead over second-place Trois-Rivières, heading into a pivotal doubleheader with the Trois. They were dominated by Trois pitcher Leslie Red Kibbe, who pitched a complete game in both ends of the doubleheader, seeing him limit Ottawa to just 2 runs on 7 hits in 18 innings. The Trois kept on winning, and the Senators were unable to keep up, finishing in second place with a 68-57 record, 2.5 games behind the pennant winners. The Eastern Canada League returned in 1923 with the Senators members once again. Well, sort of. They were unable to play at Lansdowne Park as Ottawa Alderman Thomas Brewer pushed to give priority use to the park to various amateur organizations, leaving the team with no place to play. So they played that season in Montreal, where they were just simply known as the Canadians. Late in the season, they did play a few games in Lansdowne Park. Toward the end of July, it looked as if the league might fold due to issues in Trois-Rivières. The team ran out of money and stopped paying its players, who refused to keep playing games until they were paid. A league meeting was held on August 1st in Montreal, where a new owner was found to take over the team. League president Joe Page personally traveled to Trois-Rivières to pay the players their back salaries. The ECL played a split season, with the Canadians winning the first half with a 37-21 record, and the Montreal Royals winning the second half. The Canadians would lose to the Royals in the championship series 8-7. For the 1924 season, the league would add 2 teams in Vermont and rebrand itself as the Quebec-Ontario-Vermont League, with Ottawa regaining its team for at least 6 days a week. Sunday baseball was still not allowed in Ontario, so the team would play games at Lansdowne Park Monday through Saturday, with Sunday games being played once again at Parc Dupree in Hull, Quebec. Modern sources said they played as the Ottawa Hull Senators, but the Ottawa Citizen typically just referred to them as the Ottawa Hull team, occasionally calling them the Aces or Dubuque's Athletes, referring to the team's manager, Jean Dubuque. They were expected to contend for the league pennant, but did not have a good season, finishing in last place with an overall record of 46-55. The two Vermont teams would disband within 4 days of each other. Rutland dropped out due to lack of fan support, with Montpelier withdrawing on July 15th. A new league schedule was drawn up for the 4 remaining teams, and the league was renamed the Quebec-Ontario League. Quebec would win both halves of the season, winning the league pennant. The league was expected to return in 1925, with plans to add more teams in Ontario. But at a league meeting in Montreal on April 12th, Ottawa did not send a representative, with the 3 other teams voting to disband, leaving the Canadian capital without a team for the next 11 seasons. When baseball returned in 1936, it was in the form of another team named the Ottawa Senators, this one playing in the brand new Class C Canadian American League, with all teams located in New York State and Ontario. They opened their season with 2 exhibition games against the Schenectady Mohawks, a touring Negro League team. Due to the weather, the teams were forced to play a doubleheader on May 17th, 3 days before the start of the season. The Senators won the first game 5-3 by scoring 3 runs in the 7th and were blanked 5-0 in the second game. In their first season, they played as an independent, not being affiliated with any major league club, finishing in second place with a 53-37 record, 3 games behind the pennant-winning Perth Blue Cats, who also played as the Royals that season. The Senators were led by player-manager Walt Masters, who had 3 brief stints with Washington and both of Philadelphia's major league clubs in 1931, 1937, and 1939. This would be his only season as a manager. He also spent time in the NFL playing for the Philadelphia Eagles and Chicago Cardinals and coached the Ottawa Rough Riders in the Canadian Football League from 1948 to 1950. The Senators were eliminated in the playoffs in the first round by the Brockville Pirates 3-1. For the 1937 and 1938 season, they played as an affiliate of the National League Boston Bees, who had played as the Boston Braves from 1912 through 1938. Ottawa chose to take the name Braves, not Bees, and had what would be 2 of the worst seasons in Ottawa baseball history when they finished in last place both seasons, going 32-75 in 1937 and 38-83 in 1938, seeing just over 40,700 fans attending games during both seasons. Their affiliation with Boston ended before the 1939 season, and they returned to the Senators' name. Before the start of that season, Ottawa's new general manager, Vic Wagner, was looking to reinvigorate the team. He turned to 49-year-old veteran catcher Wally Shang to be the new team's manager. Shang had spent 19 seasons playing in the American League with Philadelphia, Boston, New York, St. Louis, and most recently with Detroit. Before taking the position, Shang had consulted International League President Frank Shaughnessy about baseball in Ottawa, being told it was a fine baseball town. With Shang at the helm, the Senators had a better season than the previous 2, but were still a subpar team. They began the season losing both games of the opening series to the Amsterdam Rugmakers, 5-4 and 6-2, hanging around the 500 mark throughout the first half of the season. Around the season's midpoint, on July 4th, they were 29-28, tied for the last playoff spot with the Ogdensburg Colts. On August 7th, Shang, who was 2 weeks shy of his 50th birthday, hit his first home run since 1935 in the first game of a doubleheader against the Colts. Things went downhill shortly after that, as injuries and players skipping out on their contracts took an effect on the Senators' season as they racked up more losses than wins, finishing in 6th place with a 55-69 record. During that season, The National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues, aka Minor League Baseball, organized an all-star game at Cooperstown, New York on July 9th to celebrate baseball's 100th anniversary, featuring a representative of the 41 leagues playing that season. Shang was the Canadian American League's representative, helping coach the Cartwrights, who lost 9-6 to the Doubledays. He also caught some of the game, going 0 for 1 at the plate. 5 days earlier, on July 4th, he was at Yankee Stadium for Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day, as he was a teammate of Gehrig during his 1925 rookie season. Coincidentally, on the day Wally Pipp was replaced by Gehrig in the lineup, Shang lost his starting catching job to Benny Bengo. Shang was expected to return as manager of the Senators in 1940, but forces outside of baseball kept that from happening. On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland, triggering World War II, with Canada joining the conflict on September 10th. In December, the Senators announced that they would most likely have to play their home games for that season in the United States, most likely at Oneonta or Schenectady. Given that the team's future was uncertain, Shang was allowed to search elsewhere for a position. In January, the Ogdensburg Colts announced that they were relocating to Auburn, New York. This opening in the town of 16,000, which is located about 61.5 miles south of Ottawa, led to the Senators announcing that they would play a split season between Ogdensburg and Ottawa. The plan was to play half their home games in each city, but with poor attendance in Ogdensburg, the Senators moved permanently to Ottawa towards the end of August. For the season, they were affiliated with the Philadelphia Phillies and were managed by Cy Morgan, who had managed the Thomasville Orioles of the Georgia-Florida League the previous 3 seasons. He led the Senators to a strong first-place finish with a record of 84-39, 13 games up on the second-place Gloversville-Johnstown Glovers, giving Ottawa its first pennant since 1915. Things, though, didn't go well in the playoffs, as they were knocked out in the first round by eventual league champions, the Amsterdam Rugmakers, 4-1. The team did not draw well in either city, seeing only 29,373 fans come out in both cities. They finished in 6th out of 8 in the league attendance. The Ottawa Senators would not return in 1941. Night baseball was now considered a necessity for a minor league team's survival. Lansdowne Park did not have lights, so it was no longer considered adequate. Business manager Vic Wagner had worked hard to find a new suitable location in the area, but nothing materialized. It even looked as if they would relocate to somewhere in the U.S., but in the end, the franchise was suspended. It was meant to just last 1 season, but they never returned to the Canadian American League, which disbanded after the 1942 season. Baseball returned to Ottawa in 1947 in the form of the Class C Border League, which began play in 1946. The team played as the Ottawa Nationals in 1947 and 1950, and the Ottawa Senators in 1948 and 1949. This would end up being the most successful run in the Canadian capital since the original Senators run from 1912 to 1915. They won 3 pennants in 1947, 1948, and 1950, seeing a second-place finish in 1949. They would win the league championship in 1947 by first sweeping the Auburn Cayugas and then taking down the Ogdensburg Maples 4-2 in the championship series. For the first time in Ottawa baseball history, the team saw its attendance increase every season, with them leading the league in attendance every year except their first in 1947. In that first year, they only drew 62,607, with it topping out at 97,091 in 1950. That was over 31,700 more than the next team, the Watertown Athletics. The trend in Ottawa was noticed by the New York Giants of the National League. Their AAA International League team, the Jersey City Giants, saw the opposite happen during the same time period. In 1947, they drew over 337,500 fans, while barely bringing in just over 63,000 in 1950. The drop in attendance at Jersey City games could be due to the increase of fans in the New York area watching Giants, Dodgers, and Yankees games on television. This led to the Giants moving the team to Lansdowne Park for the 1951 season. The Ottawa Nationals relocated to Cornwall, Ontario, becoming the Cornwall Canadians. The league wouldn't make it through the 1951 season, disbanding on July 16th. Owner of the Canadians, formerly the Ottawa Nationals, T.P. Tommy Gorman, helped engineer the move of the Giants from Jersey City. He was reimbursed by the Giants for giving up his rights to the city of Ottawa, with the Border League also receiving $10,000 for giving up its largest market. The Ottawa Giants' home opener at Lansdowne Park against the Springfield Cubs was originally scheduled for Wednesday, April 25th, but it was postponed due to rain to Thursday, April 26th. It was the first AAA game, or its equivalent, in the Canadian capital since the Ottawa Wanderers in 1898. The ceremonial first pitch, conducted by Mayor Greenville Goodwin and two Canadian cabinet ministers, was unconventional by today's standards. Lester B. Pearson, Minister of External Affairs, stepped into the batter's box wielding a bat, while James G. Gardner, Minister of Agriculture, stood behind home plate with a catcher's mitt, but no mask. Goodwin delivered a pitch that Pearson, a future Canadian Prime Minister, smacked into foul territory behind first base. Ottawa won the game 5-4. The Giants had one of the best pitching staffs in the International League. Alex Konikowski led the league with a 2.59 ERA and was tied for the league lead in shutouts with 5. Red Hardy flirted with 3 no-hitters within a 4-week span, and George Bamberger threw one against the Toronto Maple Leafs on June 17th. The team's offense, though, was the worst in the league. They only hit .229, 22 points below the league average, finishing last in runs scored at 457, 75 less than the next club, and 206 less than the 6th best club. They struck out a league-high 766 times, and no player hit more than 6 home runs. In fact, combined, the team only had 33, which was less than Marv Rickard of the Baltimore Orioles, who led the league with 35. By the end of June, the team was in 7th place with a 30-42 record and had already been shut out 16 times. Despite being a terrible team on the field, fans came out and supported them, pleasing General Manager Charlie Stoneham. The New York Giants came to town on July 9th to play an exhibition game against Ottawa during the All-Star break, with Ottawa winning 4-1. Fans in the record-breaking crowd let the New York club know that they were looking for reinforcements to help out. They were none too happy the next day when they read that 2 of their best players were being reassigned to New York's other AAA team, the Minneapolis Millers. A few weeks later, rumors began that the New York Giants were planning on pulling out of Ottawa after the season. Stoneham denied them, but the truth came out later in the month when the Minneapolis Star and Tribune published an interview with New York's owner, Horace Stoneham, where he stated that Minneapolis is our best and most profitable minor league property. We've got too many tie-ups, especially in AAA. We have fulfilled our obligations with Ottawa, and from now on, we are pulling in our horns. Our plan is to only have one AAA tie-up, and that will be Minneapolis. At this point, the minor leagues were in a period of decline, and the Giants were following the trend of other major league teams by reducing the number of affiliates they had in the top 2 levels down to 1 each. Word of the interview reached Ottawa a few days later, leaving the future of professional baseball in the Canadian capital unclear for the rest of the year. Things only got worse for fans of the team when New York's farm director, Carl Hubbell, admitted that the Giants hadn't provided Ottawa with the very good ball club. The team finished in 7th place with a 62-88 record, 31 games behind the pennant-winning Montreal Royals, and a half game up on last place Springfield. Despite the terrible season, they drew 117,411 fans to Lansdowne Park. While leaders in Ottawa pushed to keep the team, International League President Frank Shaughnessy was pushing for them to relocate to Newark, New Jersey, and team up with the Philadelphia Athletics, who did not have a AAA squad in 1951. The team's future wasn't resolved until January 23, 1952, when the Philadelphia Athletics agreed to purchase them, keeping the team in Ottawa, renaming them the Ottawa Athletics. Philadelphia actually turned down the opportunity to buy the club a few times, but Frank Shaughnessy was able to change their minds, keeping baseball in the town he lived in nearly 40 years ago. Like their parent club in Philadelphia, the Ottawa team was not a success on the field. They finished in 7th place in 1952, ending with a 65-85 record, 29.5 games behind the pennant-winning Montreal Royals. But fans came out and supported the team like none before when 153,152 showed up for games at Lansdowne Park. Just like the previous season, the International League ERA leader played in Ottawa with Marian Fricano, who went 17-8 with a 2.26 ERA, edging out Ed Roebuck of Montreal by .03 points. Their offense improved over the previous season when they hit .240 as a team, belting out 81 home runs. 1953 saw them finish in 6th place with a 71-83 record, 26 games behind pennant-winning Rochester. Their attendance slipped a little, but still came in at a respectable 149,219. Once again, the pitching staff was strong, with Bob Trice going 21-10 with 20 complete games, 4 shutouts, and a 3.10 ERA. He led the league in victories and complete games. 1954 was just an awful season all around in Ottawa. The Athletics had one of the worst finishes in Ottawa history when they went 58-96, landing in the bottom of the standings, 39 games behind the pennant-winning Toronto Maple Leafs. Their attendance also dropped to a league low of 93,982. After the 1954 season, the Philadelphia Athletics moved to Kansas City and sold their Ottawa team to new owners who moved them to Columbus, Ohio, where they became the Columbus Jets. After a 6-year stint as the Charleston Charlies in West Virginia from 1971 to 1976, they returned to Columbus, Ohio, and are today's Columbus Clippers. After the Athletics left town, the Canadian capital would not see another professional baseball team for 39 years. Well, my fellow minor league nerds, that'll do it for Part 2. Be sure to check out Part 3 once it's released. It will cover right up through the 2023 season. And until next time, stay safe, and remember to never stop supporting minor league baseball, and never stop learning about minor league baseball history.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. Join me as I interview people just like you and players, coaches, GMs on the path that led you to become a fan of the sport.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTomaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Eric from the great state of Kansas.
This is Johnny from the New Orleans Baby Cakes Memorial Museum.
And we are the Earn Fun Average podcast,
where we talk to a variety of guests about their love of baseball and have fun doing it.
America, lower your standards.
Average is what we do best.
This is Patrick.
And Corey
of BaseballMapper.com. And we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball, so get on the site and find a team near you today.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series, and in every episode I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
Learn more about Curve Brim Media at curvebremmedia.com.